In June of 1764, Miss Elizabeth Graham, accompanied by the Reverend Richard Peters of St. Peter's Church in Philadelphia, departed for Europe. The trip was intended as a recuperative journey, and while abroad, she was attended by Dr. Fothergill. Elizabeth's little niece, Anna Young, and her infant brother John were orphaned owing to the death of Elizabeth's older sister Jane, who had married James Young. Then, Mrs. Graham, never a strong person, was bedridden. Her condition failed to improve. This situation had been carefully omitted from all correspondence with Elizabeth. Mrs. Graham had been closely attended by Eliza Stedman, Elizabeth's dearest friend.
Tishomingo, chief of the Salish tribes. How do you call yourself?
I am Ulatin.
Ulatin, the legendary messenger sent from Ilhali, the land of the Great Spirit. Ulatin, its literal translation meant the Wondrous One. Tishomingo was a wise chief. The declarations of this boy were not sufficient proof. If indeed this lad were Ulatin, he must be tested, and he must pass every test. Without a moment's hesitation, the lad accepted the challenge. He would undergo any test Tishomingo imposed. And so, the Salish tribesmen began to measure the power of the Indian boy. They pitted him against the swiftest runners of the tribe. He had the speed and poise of a young deer. He was even able to hurl his spear further than even the strongest brave of the tribe. Though he was still a boy, the most experienced archer could not surpass his distance and accuracy. Sakima, the most powerful Salish brave, had never been beaten in arm wrestling until the day he pitted his strength against this boy. But even more interesting was the appeal Ulatin had for the tribesmen. They admired his courage, respected his tremendous abilities, but more than that, they came to like him. He seemed humble and gracious. Finally, however, having passed all other contests, Ulatin would be faced with the greatest of all challenges, to determine his true identity. Slowly and carefully, Ulatin was circled again and again by members of the tribe. His body was tightly wrapped in strong ropes. All weapons had been removed from his person. Strength, guile, cunning, all would be measured in his attempt to escape the rope prison. No member of the tribe was permitted to help. A brave had two choices. He could somehow free himself and pass the test, or he could admit defeat. In this case, he would be released, but be branded as a failure. The prison of ropes was only rarely used. Many braves had been seriously injured trying to escape. Some proud ones had died from days of thirst and starvation. Most challengers had finally admitted defeat. Satumka threw herself at the chief's mercy. This was only a boy. Whether or not he was Ulatin was of no concern to her. He was proud, noble, and kind. He had called her mother. That was sufficient for her, whatever his name. This would be an answer to her prayers, a child for whom she could care. Yulatine called to Satumka, who immediately answered the call. Your love fills my heart, Earth Mother, but do not worry. I am truly Yulatine. There was no longer any doubt. This was truly Yulatine, the wondrous one. Having been tested by his tribesmen, he reaffirmed his earthly task. He alone would enter the forbidden forest of the Chihas and free the helpless children.
As we walked away, I couldn't help but think. There were those little guys, all by themselves, looking out for each other, just like us. Paul, Francis, Albert, and me. Orphans, I suppose, but those young bucks, they're so little and so hard. I looked deep into their eyes and remembered lots of things, all jumbled up together. Maybe Tom was right. A man's eyes are the windows to his soul. Tom says you gotta be hard, you gotta be mean, but them young'uns have seemed too small for such feelings. I remember when I was their age, even older, even after we lost Mom. Paul, he never held no bitterness, and the farm was hard for all of us. But maybe Tom was right, and Paul was wrong. Paul was so good and kind, but he's dead. Tom says you learn to trust nobody and you live a long life. I remember, though, Paul and the Stetson, his prize hat. Someday you'll be the man of the house, and this will be yours. Someday came too soon. Tom says a man's best friend is his gun, the equalizer, the real peacemaker. Tom says nothing like a six-shooter to help even the score. Paul, he taught me how to shoot, too. The rifle. Just for hunting, though. A man's gotta have meat, that's all. I never saw him raise a gun against anyone. But Tom, he taught me how to use a handgun, how to be fast. I'm not always sure what's going inside my head. Those men, they killed my pa, and I want to even the score, even if it means going against the things my pa stood for. I guess if I'm the man of the house, things will have to be settled my way. I'm no killer, but that was murder. The sheriff won't help. I've got to do it myself. I've got to settle the score. Tom's way ain't the only way, but now I wear the gun and the hat.
You're mine! And I'm going to keep you, forever if necessary, until they bring me that bottle!